Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. All right, so the Ukrainian offensive is now 2.5 weeks in. Now, I'm going to say, well, first of all, I'm going to admit to having been wrong because I had said during the first week that I expected it to be over in another week. I didn't really expect this to last more than a couple of weeks for this offensive, but I expected an actual offensive, which has not been happening. Uh, instead, it has been highly underwhelming. I expected that the Ukrainians would launch a major offensive in some limited areas and break through the first line to the first the Russian first defense line. The Russian defense line is where they have all of their uh, entrenchments and fortifications built up. The area ahead of that, where the combat is now taking place, is considered the active defense zone or combat zone. And as it is, the Ukrainian forces have not come within 10 kilometers of the Russian first line of defense. They've gotten nowhere near it. I expected the Ukrainians to break through to the Russian first line of defense and then become stalled there. And that has not been happening. Some of this is happening because of poor command structure. Uh, there have been Ukrainian soldiers that were engaged in one offensive action. Uh, so this was a German outlet that interviewed these soldiers, and they said there was no communication, no coordination between these three brigades that were involved in this. And the commanders of these brigades had just come back from 3 months of training in NATO. So, what kind of training were they receiving? Anyway, so as of this time, the Ukrainian offensive has stalled out. It's just not moving at all. They did launch some British Storm Shadow missiles and hit the Crimean Bridge today. What good is this doing? The Crimean Bridge is 100 kilometers or more behind the front lines. And that's probably the reason that attack was successful. Some of them got shot down, but a couple of them got through and did some damage. They didn't destroy the bridge, they did some damage. And it's probably going to take 3 or 4 days for the Russians to repair that damage. That is not even the primary supply route into the Zaporozhye region, which is a land route. This bridge, it was carrying more civilian vehicle traffic. So this was a PR stunt. That's all. Just like the attack on the trying to enter the Belgorod region of Russia, that was all PR because there were virtually no military forces in that region. That's why they did this. But it did nothing to try and reclaim any Ukrainian territory. And maybe they thought that it was going to draw Russian troops from the combat lines to defend that area, But that didn't work either. Instead, the governor of that region formed a territorial defense force, and now also the Chechnyan Ahmad Special Unit and the Wagner forces are now up there in the Belgorod region leading this territorial defense force. And a lot of people are expecting them to cross into Kherson and try to retake Kherson. So, or no, Kharkiv. Sorry, I always get those two confused. So, as of right now, the Ukrainians, according to Russian estimates, the Ukrainians have lost about 17,000 troops, casualties, killed and injured. They count 245 tanks, about 678 armored vehicles of various types, and that does include many vehicles that were sent by the West, the Bradleys, Strykers, the Leopard 2s. There have been a lot of videos of Leopard 2s. They've lost at least 30-40% of the Leopard 2s. There was one Challenger tank that did enter combat, and it was very quickly taken out. They've lost 6 fighter jets and I think 2 helicopters. What are they doing? I watched this one channel called the Military Summary Channel, and he claims to be, what do you call it? Objective, not on either side, but you can actually tell by little clues that he does lean toward the Ukrainian side, not heavily, but somewhat. In the last few days, he has resorted to talking about this Ukrainian brigade moved from here to here, and this one's moving from here to here, and this one's moving from here to here. But the thing is that these brigades are not engaging. He talks about 5 or 6 brigades are all built up in this one concentrated area, and he calls it a very powerful attack fist. But they're 10 kilometers back from the front line, and they haven't moved in a week. That's not an attack fist. That's a parking lot. Anyway, so the opinion seems to be that by the Ukrainians that if they're not engaging, they're not losing as many vehicles. They don't count. They do not count their troop losses. They from all indications, they don't care how many troops they lose. Bakhmut was a very strong indicator of this. They just kept on throwing people into the city until there was an estimated 100,000, somewhere between 50 and 100,000 troops that were lost in the battle for Bakhmut, which they ultimately lost. Well, as of now, they're trying not to lose all of this equipment, but in the meanwhile, while they're sitting there, Russia is targeting ammo depots, command centers for these brigades, and repair depots for the equipment. So they're losing equipment by sitting there. The longer you're sitting there, the easier it is to target these things. a mobile target is harder to hit, and you're not doing anything to push the Russian forces back. They have been making these very limited attacks in small areas, and they've taken a few small towns uh, right at the front lines, but even those areas keep on switching back and forth between the Russian forces and the Ukrainian forces, uh, holding those areas. Uh, During the daytime, one gets pushed back, and then at night, the ones that took that area get pushed back. So instead of a constant offensive that I was expecting, then it's just completely uncoordinated and disorganized. One of the most effective, uh, you know, uh, offensive formations is something that they have not used, which is a trident, three-column type of formation, where you go in three lines, or say a wedge isn't going to work too well with all of the landmines that are being used. Which, by the way, the Ukrainians have been laying mines ahead in front of their own forces. Try and figure that out. I guess that's to stop Russian forces from advancing when the Russian forces are not trying to advance in those areas. But you go in with anti-tank, anti-mine vehicles to clear the mines as you're going, and the columns on each side are defending each side until you reach an objective. But they haven't done this a single time. They'll go in one single convoy in a straight line, which is just far too easy to defeat. And once your leading vehicle, the mine clearing vehicle, gets knocked out, because even a mine clearing vehicle can only hit so many mines or get hit so many times before it's completely disabled. And then all of the vehicles behind it, they're going to turn around and go back, because everything on each side, they can't go around it to go ahead, because they'll hit the mines and get knocked out themselves. So I guess the main thing that I'm trying to say is that I really just do not understand what they are trying to achieve, other than an occasional PR victory that does absolutely nothing else. That's all that they're managing. You take a small village that has a couple of hundred, maybe 2,000 people, which those people are all gone. They've all evacuated. And that's supposed to be a major victory. That does absolutely nothing. So I don't understand what they're doing. At this point, it seems like they're just trying to hold grounds until the NATO summit in Vilnius in July. That's not until July 10th or 11th, something like that. And I guess they're expecting that NATO is going to move in and take over for them and fight their battle for them. But that's not going to happen either. Jens Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, already admitted just the other day that NATO is out of ammunition to send Ukraine. The United States is out of ammunition to send Ukraine. They're trying to send old M60 tanks from Vietnam era. I, and those fire 105 millimeter shells, and what your supply line would be like to how are you going to replace engines for something that is no longer being produced? I don't know. So all they can do is, patch these things together. It's been reported in the New York Times that most of the equipment sent from the United States, including howitzers, they were inoperable when they had to take pieces from one to put them together in Poland before even sending them in. So you wind up with far fewer pieces of equipment that are actually getting there. And that takes time, that takes money, that takes labor, and that does no good. It does no good. Anyway, so I'm still not expecting this unless they just freeze the conflict right where it's at and go back to positional fighting that has been going on since September of last year. Then the effect at that point, the offensive is over. It is over. NATO and the West expected to see some kind of results from this offensive. And at this point, even if the West had more weapons and ammunition to send, the people of Europe, the people of the United States are in opposition to this. There is growing opposition to sending any more over there when it's not doing anything except for killing more Ukrainians. Sharing, I am still crossing my fingers, hoping that there will be peace talks. Because there are rising calls for that. I can hope for it. I'm not counting on it. Not unless there is a coup or something like that in Ukraine to take out the current administration and replace it with somebody that is more amenable to sitting down and negotiating. Anyway, share this video, talk about these subjects. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand this channel and my presidential campaign, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good day.